Okay, all right. Good morning to all of you. Good morning to our audience. Good morning, Miss Loo Yim Ling.
Good
How are you
morning.
today?
Fine. It's a good day.
Yes, it's a good day today. Thank you for coming today to be with us
Thank you for
today.
inviting me as well. Thank you very much.
No problem, Miss Yim Ling. Okay, all right. So, welcome to today's webinar session. Being a project leader for DevOps. That is our title for today. All right. So as usual, before we get started, dear audience, I would like to go over a few things. All right. So number one, as usual, you will have the opportunity to get the certificate by clicking on the link that we have in our Facebook page. All right. So you just click on the link provided, fill in the form, and you can submit. Okay, this is to get your e-certificate. All right, you may also send in your question at any time during the session, and we will try to address them at the end of today's presentation. Okay, and thank you to School of Creative Media Technology and also the IT program coordinator for coming up with the idea for today's topic. And thank you to Miss Loo Yim Ling for coming out with the great idea with this title being a project leader for DevOps. All right, so before we continue, I would like to introduce our speaker for today. All right, so we have technologist Loo Yim Ling for our webinar session today. All right, she's graduated from UNITAN, University Tenaga Nasional, with a first class honor degree in Bachelor of Computer Science in year 2008. All right, and then she started her career in TMB, which is one of the subsidiary research institute, IEPRE, Institute of Energy Policy and Research, as a research engineer before proceeding to pursue her master degree. All right, and then she pursued master degree with a research focusing on forensic science in biometrics domain, and she graduated from UNITAN in Master of Information Technology with full research mode in 2014. So the findings of Ms. Yim Ling's research entitled Analysis of Global and Local Online Signature Features Belonging to Genuine and Forged Signature Samples, which were published in ISI Journal, Wiley's Journal of Forensic Science. Okay, and currently, Ms. Yim Ling is a lecturer in UTAR, teaching students mainly on software design, advanced web application, Laravel framework, wireless application development, React Native, and software construction and configuration, GitHub, Docker, Travis, and CI. So she's provided an online workshop entitled Wireless Application Development as one of the initiative of KLESF 2020 in October 2020. So she attained her professional technologies recognition from Malaysia Board of Technologies, which known as MBOT, okay, in end of March 2021. Okay, so I'm very pleased to welcome technologist Loo Yim Ling, which is also known as Miss Yim Ling, for our webinar session today. Welcome to our session today, Miss Yim Ling.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the detailed introduction of me. So everyone
Yeah,
can
maybe
just call me Miss Yim Ling. Yes.
Miss Yim Ling, eh? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So maybe we can start with because our audience might wants to know what is DevOps. Yeah, we always see the word DevOps. Even looking at your background, we can see the DevOps logo symbol. So it is DevOps. So what actually DevOps is, Miss Yim Ling?
All right. If we are to look into the paradigm shift of our software development for nowadays, it is talking about continuous integration of more features, more functionalities. In the very history of software development itself, we focus a lot on quickly finishing a project development itself and try to deliver that software on time or before the deadline. And after that, it might be just a simple support of if there are any errors or any bugs that are found, then we will provide some of the support of patches, of warranty supports or legacy support. So those were the idea before this. But when we look into the paradigm shift nowadays, it is not about support, but most of the scene of software development itself, it doesn't just end at delivery. They actually proceed to receive more and more feedbacks and more suggestions or comments from clients, telling them that I want this new feature. I want this to be integrated in this software. Is it possible? And the vendor or the software house or the one that developed that software would have to look back into planning and into building the software itself, and of course to push whichever that is built to operation mode or to the production environment, so that the users or the clients can use that software with new features. And of course, maybe there are major changes, then it will be a major change from the first version into the second version of the software itself. So when this come into picture, a lot of people are actually looking into, so how do we fit these workflow into most of the software development lifecycle methodologies that we have. Then this came into mind, which is DevOps itself, because the idea of DevOps is having the different team of development and also operation itself, all right, together, and they form a circle of development, and they form a circle of operation itself. When they are gathered together, they form an infinity loop. So this infinity loop itself, it actually gave a workflow of, we don't just end at delivery itself. So we plan, we code, we build, and we test as development team ourselves. Then when we pass that tested software to operation team, the operation team will continue to release, deploy, operate, and maintain that software. So when the new requirements or the new features or the new recommendations came from clients or came from users, then the development team will look into the software again to plan, to go back into coding, to go there into building the codes and testing the codes. Then they pass to the operations teams again, so that the updated software will be released, will be operated, will be maintained as well, or monitored as well. So this is the main idea of having DevOps, of where we have continuous kind of delivery, where we have continuous kind of feedbacks. So they don't just end at delivery itself, but they continuously build different versions of that software itself. They don't stop the software at one point. Before this, we have like, okay, maybe this software is in version 1. And then after a few years, we see that, oh, a totally different version of this software came out. Like before this, it is 95. Then when it comes out, the new version of it, which is totally disregarded from 1995 itself, it came out in 1998. So it calls it as the version in 1998. And we see that there's no continuation between the 1995 version and the 1998 version. However, nowadays, if we are to look into the software that we have on whichever platform that we would like to download, we do not download software that doesn't have long-term support. We download software that mentioned over there in the bracket saying that it is LTS, or long-term, it is providing a long-term support itself. So we are looking for software that has this continuous improvement or continuous release of that software. Because if we do not look for that, we would know, or we would expect that they will actually obsolete in any time, right? Maybe in 1 year or 2 years, and we do not want to have this kind of software or this kind of platform. So which is why this comes the idea of continuous delivery itself as well. Right, so that we don't actually end the software at some point of time. And users nowadays, they don't look for any software that would end at some point of time as well. Yeah, so that is the original idea of having DevOps itself. Yeah. So I'll continue on to look into DevOps itself. If there's any questions from Miss Zhu.
Maybe you can you can explain more on where do we apply this DevOps, okay? Because all of us want to know more about DevOps. So Miss Yim Ling
Okay.
can continue. Yes.
All right, all right. So when we look into applying DevOps itself, because now today I'm not going to cover the whole DevOps itself, because it is actually a really totally a large kind of coverage. If we are to cover it in a course itself, it is going to contain one course itself for one semester. So
Yes.
looking into the theme that we have today, I really thank God that we have the theme of being a leader in this industrial field itself, that I can just cover on the project leader, on managing a DevOps team itself. So we will gauge into how do we lead a team of DevOps itself, and what are the things that we need to take note as we are actually leading this kind of methodology, that we will need to continuously develop that software itself. Now, just now we mentioned about continuously developing. We mentioned about there might be no end. It seems a little bit disappointing, right? Because when we are asked to run a marathon, we are supposed to see the ending itself so that we can actually run that race. But of course, every project has its own ending. It is just that ending itself, if we are to look into the scene of software development nowadays, we don't see that ending as literally as it is, because we would like to continue to build a software that sustains. So I hope that the public actually get this idea that you are not running a race without any end, but you are running a race that you are fighting for something that is worth it, that is sustainable. Because if the software is not sustainable, then it will be risky. It will be much more riskier for us to actually put our hands and build it, because we know that in times to come, it will not sustain. It will be obsolete. It will be out of date, and everyone will cease from using it. So we would like to have a software that is sustainable, that is being used even in 5 years or 10 years time. So that actually brought the idea of continuous integration and continuous delivery itself. But when we look into these two DevOps, okay, development team and also operation team itself, usually when we are a project leader, when we look into leading this team itself, it contains a little bit more complexity of managing these two teams together, because the aims of development itself is different, and the aims of operation itself is different as well. Developers, they plan, they code, they build, they test. So this team, usually they aim to really have more and more features, really have more and more requirements to be added, to change the software, to make it updated, to make it feasible for the usage of the next generation of the users when it comes to the time when this software actually goes for quite some time itself. And they might aim for changing of platform as well. So if the platform that the software is being deployed is no longer available for any support, not the software itself, then the developers will think of, okay, which platform should we migrate to? So that's the common kind of thinking that the development team would have. But when we look into operation side, they are the ones who actually release the software. They are the ones who actually deploy the software. They are the ones who actually make sure that the software operates at its uptime, and it doesn't go down. It doesn't have any downtime. They have to maintain the software in such a way that they have to risk 24/7 of their lives, that they have to pray, they have to do anything just to make sure that the software doesn't have any bugs or doesn't have any errors that comes along when it is at the uptime of itself. So operations team would think very hard to keep this software. If it is released at a stable version, then they will say that, okay, this is the best that we can have out of this software. Please don't apply any change anymore, because I don't want to risk. I don't want to risk any change that might make or might introduce bugs or might introduce downtime to that software itself. So there is always this tug of war between development team and also operation team. So as a project leader ourselves, we have to gauge these. This is not a digital divide, but a mindset divide itself. It is not abnormal. It is not actually a bad thing for both of this team to think this way, because it is their aim. It is actually their vision, all right, that they should actually stick on. So what do we do as a project leader is that we can actually regulate these two teams together and bring them, of course, we all know the scripted answers. We all know that, okay, we shall bring these two teams to have training, to have the same exploration, and have the same exposure, so that they will have the same mind, so that they will see the same value. Why we have to have differences, why we want to have changes in our software, and for the developers to understand the worries of the operations team. But on top of it, actually, we need to also manage the interpersonal communications between them, because there are a lot of we are actually managing people. And people doesn't have just they are not just working like a machine itself. Okay, if you give me this requirement, then I will generate this code for you, and the next thing would be the other software will generate the deployment of the software and then push it into the production environment. So we are managing people with emotions, with fear, with happiness, with joy. So a lot of times it revolves in managing the credits and also censure that happens between the team itself. So when we look into credits and censure itself, of course, in development team, we would actually face two very extreme cases, whereby if we are talking about continuous integration, right, it is like we are having different developers, we are having a team itself. The best situation will be we have a team within Malaysia, or the best situation will be we are having a team of developers within a company itself. So within that company, you have your team of 5 to 10 developers. Then they can actually communicate with one another at a same time zone. But we cannot avoid if we have developers from different time zones. So if we are a company of multinationality itself, we have different time zones developer to be a team, to be a few team members of the team itself. Then we will have to manage as well their different time zone, where they would want to integrate their codes, they would want to try to send and update the repository or the project itself at their own timing. So if we are looking into the different timing or the different pace of developers, because even if we are talking about same time zone itself, not everyone or not every developer would actually send in their updates at the same time. We would have to expect that they will send in their updates at different times. And of course, if we have different people sending updates at different times, the first extreme outcome, or the first outcome would be, okay, it has a successful build, right? The code is working, and the tester is satisfied, and the developer is satisfied as well. Okay, so we proceed to another update tomorrow, or the end of this week. So that might be one of the case. But if we face with another challenge, which is the other outcome of it, which is having a failed test. All right, so let's say I integrated my code, and maybe at the similar kind of time, some 2 or 3 developers actually integrated their codes as well. And when the failed test come, and when the test report or the failed build come, so who would actually want to take that responsibility itself? So we have both situation over here, in which it will result in one is saying that I am the one who did it. Another one is saying that no, I am not the one who did it. So as a project leader, how should we actually handle this? Because we are not only handling one developer itself. We are handling maybe a team of 5 to 10, or sometimes if the project is a lot larger, then you will have hundreds of them, right? And all, of course, maybe it is across the globe as well. So how do we actually track and trace who actually gets the credit, who actually should receive such credits, and who actually should be the one who would take that load of responsibility when the program or the integration fails. And it happens the same with our ops team as well. So operation team itself, we have 2 different outcomes as well. Okay, one is of course, it is safely in production itself. So we thank the operation team. We say that, okay, the operation team do much effort in putting the software in deploying the software into production environment itself. And then it is really due to the effectiveness of the operation team itself. But when things become messier, so it leads to another outcome, which is it actually came into the downtime itself. It falls into under maintenance. So when the users, they are entering that application itself, how come it is under maintenance, and complaints start to stream in. So who do we look for, okay, to be responsible for this? Because as a leader ourselves, we cannot just simply find someone to be a scapegoat and let them know that, hey, you should be the one who is responsible for this, because you are in operation team. But how do we know that it is the problem of operation team itself? Maybe it is a little or a simple update from the development team, and they push it into production mode. They went through the test, and the test said that, okay, it's no problem. But when it comes to operation mode itself, there comes the problem. There comes the breakage of the software itself in production mode. And that actually may be the root cause. And who actually is the one who performed that update itself from the development team? So we as the leader ourselves, we have to find this out. We have to track this, so that the one who should take responsibility would take the responsibility, and the ones who should take the credit should take the credit. there is a saying that there is not just a saying. There's an article actually published in early of 2020 itself, when they say that the failure of having a company that has a very high turnover rate itself, it actually have a greater reason of having a failed supervisor. So what do companies actually look into when they have many um, subordinates or many employees that are resigning from the company itself, that are not satisfied with the company itself? It actually lies on the direct supervisor or the direct leader that is above them, that is managing them. So this is one of the very crucial points when we are acting as a project leader itself. When we delegate tasks, that is one point. Of course, task delegation is quite straightforward because it involves in their expertise. So if they are expert in coding itself, they would be automatically put into coding. If they are expert in gathering requirement itself, then they would be put into planning. If their expertise is deploying a software on a platform and monitoring it, that then they would actually fall to the ops team itself. So this is very straightforward. But what is so complex about being a project leader is that when it comes to things that would bring the joy or bring the fear of the employees that are under this project leader itself, which is having the credits, and also which is having the censure itself, whether they are acknowledged for what they have done or what they have contributed for the company, or they are actually being blamed for something that they have not done or wrongfully blamed. Right. So this usually is what happens. And this is the major context that we need to look into as a project leader itself, which is why I think this topic itself, it actually brings, I hope that it brings into light, all right, for some of us who are planning to be a project leader, who would be planning to be an entrepreneur, because this actually helps you to build a team, not just build a software that is sustainable. Because I'm introducing this development method so that you would go for building a software that is sustainable itself. But the title of our webinar today is about being a project leader. So I would actually touch a lot about how to be a leader that would lead a team to be sustainable as well. Because if your team is not sustainable to begin with, then it will actually be reflected in the software that you're building in the end.
Correct.
Because what we are having in our vision itself is actually having a software that would impact the world, that would actually bring contribution to the community, and it would sustain itself. And the same kind of aspects would have been seen in your team as well. And that is this is one of the aspects, or most crucial aspect or important aspect, that you would want to look into, which is to manage the credits and also censure in your team. Because most of the time, the misunderstandings, the kind of frustration actually comes, all right, when it comes to not being acknowledged for your contribution itself. And on top of it, all right, which is the worst case, you're wrongfully blamed for something that you haven't done. So managing this as a project leader itself, it is actually very hard for the leader as well. So we don't actually expect the leader to monitor. If you have a project of 100 people, so how do we actually monitor everything? How do we actually know this update is from the development or from the operation side? And how do we actually know that this update or this integration itself is to be credited to who has actually updated it correctly, and who have actually deployed it correctly? If your team is large enough, or even your team is not large enough, even if it is just containing of 5 people, how do you actually manage the credits and censure between these two teams itself? So one of the key aspect that we want to look into is that we have to use automation. We have to look into automation itself. We have to look into autonomous tools in order for us to monitor the whole development itself. When we say that it is continuously being integrated, it is continuously being having feedback from users. So you are not actually just managing the team itself, and you're managing the team with the users' feedback as well at the same time. So you are actually thinking of, okay, whether we would want to integrate this new feature for this software itself. And at the same time, you are actually considering the load of your current employees or your current subordinate that is under you. And all this, when all this thing comes into your responsibility itself, you would need a tool to help you. So the first tool that I would actually suggest is software versioning. Okay, well, so just now we have Miss Sue who actually talked about GitHub, Git. So GitHub, Git, Bitbucket, GitLab, all this are actually software versioning tool where we can actually tap on this technology, where you have the development team to upload their projects into that repository. So when I introduce that we have a team maybe who is working with a different time zone itself, then how do we actually update that software or the project itself at the first place? This is through a tool, right, where you can upload your project into a repository or into a main storage itself, so that that storage will keep it in the cloud, not in your local workstation. But of course, you can actually keep one copy in your local workstation as well. That is not a problem, because GitHub is the web server version that is using the versioning system that Git has. So that is why you have GitHub and the Git. So GitHub is the web version of it, and Git is the local workstation of it. So when you have your local copy of that project itself, then you can use Git to push it up to GitHub. So there is no problem in having different developers who work at different time zone, because nowadays when we work from home, right, we have COVID pandemic and we have to work from home. And how do we actually make sure that the developers are actually advancing or enhancing the software itself? It is by this tool, because firstly, when you try to integrate your code into the main project folder itself in GitHub, it will have a record of who actually integrated the codes and what kind of changes that this person has tried to make, okay, during that change itself. So it has a full record of who actually did what, right? And on top of it, so this actually solved the problem of a different time zone itself. This actually solved the problem of tracking itself, because you have the full record of it. You can actually just open up GitHub, or you can actually just open up Bitbucket to look into the record who has updated what at which time. And on top of it, so how do we know that this update itself is not breaking the software build itself? On top of the Git or GitHub that we are using, or Bitbucket that we are using, we can actually put on continuous integration tool. So the continuous integration tool, of course, they might have some of the automized or some of the autonomous libraries that we can use for testing itself. But of course, the testing would be very simple, like code coverage, like code quality. So these are actually just tools that are made for to look into the quality of assurance of that software itself. But it didn't touch about unit testing, because unit testing is supposed to be done very closely to the coding itself. So which is why it has to be developed by a tester as well. It doesn't actually cancel. So the tools that I am introducing over here, it actually doesn't cancel the job of human, because human shall be there as well, but it will actually smooth out, or it will actually help the project leader and of course the team itself as well to recognize all the different records, or to have a full traceability of what they have done thus far for that software development. So for the public, do not be afraid. You will not be cancelled off your job. If you are a tester, you are needed in this tool as well. If you are an operator, you are needed in this tool as well. It is just that these tools are actually helping you to have some or most of the manual kind of tasks that you have to be autonomously done. So all you have to do is just to monitor whether it's done correctly or not. So when it comes to testing part, now continuous integration tool actually allow us to when there is a push or when there is an update to the main folder of that project itself, continuous integration tool will be triggered. Oh, there is an update. So now I have to run these workflows that are actually determined by the testers, by the developers, or by the operation team. So operation team can be seen in this picture as well, because continuous integration can actually involve up until the pipeline of deployment itself. So operation team can come into this continuous integration tool and set or configure the pipeline of after building, after testing. Okay, now I would like to configure how this integration of or this update of codes will look like in a staging environment. So it is not the true production environment, because it will not be pushed into the production environment yet, because we have not released this version of changes to the user yet. So it will be called a staging environment, very close to the production environment itself, so that the operation team will monitor some, because there are some of the updates or changes that might actually pass all the tests in the world, but break the software in the production environment. So what do operation team need to make sure of is that they need to make sure that the updates or the changes doesn't break the software in production mode itself, right? Even though it has passed all the tests, even though it has passed all the builds. So the operation team would have wanted to come into this picture to actually integrate, to actually have this continuous integration tool itself, so that whichever update will pipeline or will trigger the continuous integration tool, and the continuous integration tool will alert any of the developer or any of the operation members that this update itself has a broken build or a broken test or a broken deployment or not in the staging environment. Then when this come into picture, then not just the team would be alerted, okay, or would be aware of any errors that happens. The project leader would be alerted if there's any errors that come into the picture, if there's any broken builds, or if there's any kind of broken tests or failed tests, or if there's any kind of broken software in the staging environment itself. So by then it is clear. It is clear cut, and it is not in the gray area itself. You would know that, okay, at this point of time, this person have updated this, and then it leads to the record of build and record of deployment. And in this time itself, the deployment actually failed. So no one can say that it is not me.
Yeah, because it's recorded, right?
Yes, because it is recorded, because it is actually given in the record itself of the continuous integration tool and the version control system itself. So you save a lot of miscommunication, a lot of problems of handling censures and also credits itself. And from there, you can actually, if of course, we are not pinpointing on finding faults over here. We are using these tools, of course, to actually say to the team that, wow, you have done a good job. Because through the log of records itself, you would see that how this project has advanced thus far, maybe in a week, maybe in a month. So you can actually use that record to commend your team as well, to actually appraise them because they have advanced thus far, all right, in just a short time, or in just 1 month time, or in just 1 week of time itself. So if we can actually feed them with the joy itself, instead of keep on triggering their fear of getting the blame, then
Yes.
automatically the team would have actually continued their passion. All right, they will not be, of course, the first thing is that they would not be burnt out. All right, and the second thing is that they would actually keep their passion to continue to move on, all right, for the project itself. So this is very important, and I think all these tools actually really help for a project leader itself. So if we are looking into GitHub or GitLab itself, we would be actually introduced with continuous integration or CI/CD tools. Okay, we call it continuous integration or continuous delivery tool, which might involve like Jenkins, which might involve like Travis CI, Circle CI. Nowadays we have GitHub Actions within GitHub itself. So these are the tools that are really, really useful if we want to look into managing a project and a project team for software development itself. And when we talk about continuous delivery, of course, operation team, they can use the continuous integration tool together with the library or together with the tool that help them to push into staging environment itself, like Docker. So that is why I say that there is a lot to cover if we are to look into the DevOps itself. We have continuous delivery. We have nowadays, we don't actually deploy our software like the other days where we can actually have the soft copy of it and then we deploy it on our local workstation. Nowadays, they are aiming for containerization. They are aiming for cloud virtual machines so that they can ensure all these efforts are just to ensure the users are having the same environment. Because the problem is that when we are project leader, we need to manage the our team side, and also we need to manage the user side as well, because the user will feedback to us as well. So the user will usually tell us that it is working in your side, but it's not working my side. So how? Tell me how. I am having this operating system. I'm having the minimal requirement that you have told me, but it just simply doesn't work. And maybe in the same operation team or development team itself also happen the same. I am having this local workstation. I am developing this project, but it actually work at your side. It doesn't work at my side. When I deploy it on this workstation itself, it mentioned that okay, the minimal requirement is this, but it still just didn't work. So how do we solve this? So that is why the idea of having virtual machine, of having container, of having cloud softwares. So we don't actually download the software and then run differently in our different local workstations, but we have the same environment just to solve the problem of having different environment, and sometimes the different environment just doesn't let our software to work. Yeah, so that actually comes into why you have a deployment where you can deploy it on containers instead. So this advancement of, or this paradigm shift that we have for software development itself, it didn't just shift the whole methodology of our software lifecycle development itself, but it also shifted on how we deploy our software. All right, and how the software is being released to users nowadays. All right, so that would be the whole I hope that I've covered enough for both of this big title. One is being a project leader, managing a team, a software development team itself, and another one is being in looking into the software development methodology of DevOps itself. Yeah.
Okay, detailed explanation,
Yeah.
right?
Thank you very much.
Very detailed explanation. Okay, and then we can see now what now we get the clear picture what DevOps is. Okay, and then we get the clear picture how to manage the DevOps, how to manage this DevOps operation. All right, and then we also know what makes the team work together. All right, so those are the main points that we get. But I just now I think you were talking about continuous integration tools. All right. So I think maybe we can those who have question, you can type your question in our chat panel in Facebook. Maybe we can go to the question later on. All right. So Miss Yim Ling already explained about a little bit about DevOps, and then Miss Yim Ling also talking about the operation side and the development side, how both teams work together, and then where they do the software versioning online, and there is a record where the leader know who made the changes, and they find a way to fix the issue, not to put the blame on people, not to put the blame on the team, which team is doing this, which team is doing that, and then by using this method, they also give credit to the right person, to the right team, okay, which is good, all right. And but I have another question, Miss Yim Ling. Okay,
Yes.
nowadays people keep talking about people keep talking about agile method. Okay, I seldom hear the word DevOps previously. But what makes DevOps unique compared to this agile method?
All
Okay,
right. All
what
right.
makes it different from agile method? Why people keep talking about agile methods, but they don't go for DevOps?
Sure, sure. We are in this 21st century that we are having a lot of methodology that we look for, but of course the most popular ones that we have during workshops or webinars that we have is of course agile method itself, because
Mhm.
agile methodology, the main idea of agile itself is really the word agile itself. It actually tells people that we are trying to do things really fast, and we are
Mm.
trying to deliver it really quickly. And when we are talking about quick, fast, and not time consuming, we automatically link it to efficiency. And these actually brought into the mindset that, oh, then we can actually maximize the potential as well on top of it. So people would automatically find this methodology to be really good, to be really feasible for any of the software project development that we have nowadays, because everything is advancing very fast in a fast-paced way, and that is why we don't want to lose out. As an entrepreneur ourselves, we don't want to lose out to the market, because we know that maybe in 3 months' time, everything will be changed, and maybe the client doesn't need our software anymore. So what we can do is that we have to quicken the whole process of developing the software. So which is why this agile methodologies come to our mind, and it brings us into light that we should actually apply this methodology in every software development that we have. Of course, mostly because of the nature of how our information technology now is advancing. But when we look into agile methodology itself, of course, we don't focus on just one methodology itself. If we are to look into all the methodologies that we have, the gist of why we have different methodologies is because we want to choose one methodology that best suited for the nature of the development of that software. So if that software needs time, needs a lot of planning, needs a lot of resources, we might not actually choose agile methodology, or we might not want to choose agile development itself, because that software nature itself, it doesn't just fit into this methodology. The problem is there comes the entrepreneurial mindset that I have if I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Even though the nature of the software is not to be rushed, I want it to be rushed, because I simply want the software to be developed within 3 months' time to catch up with the advancement of the software and development itself. But of course, one of the things that we have found nowadays, if we really look into researchers, we actually can see that agile methodology itself, it has one very large disadvantage to that as a project leader, is that I need all the team members to be as agile as the methodology. Yes.
Yeah.
If that actually comes into mind as a project leader or as an entrepreneur myself, it actually means that all of us needs to be at our fittest level. And I have to make sure myself as at the fittest level as well. So if we can't actually push ourselves to that standard, then I would suggest that we don't aim to apply the whole workflow of agile methodology itself. I mean, I don't actually say that it is a very disadvantaged kind of methodology and you shall not actually apply it. You can actually apply different methodologies at the same time, because agile methodology does actually mix with extreme programming, or does actually mix with Scrum methodology as well. It does actually mix with prototyping methodology, and in DevOps itself, you can actually mix with a little bit of agile methodology as well if you would like to push it to be faster. So but the agile methodology in itself, it is a very good kind, or it is a very ideal kind of methodology for if you have an ideal team and an ideal yourself to actually lead that project itself. Because the problem with agile development itself is that because you have deadlines for you to meet, and you have to meet it really strictly, that not only your team members have to be the fittest, you yourself have to be the fittest, so that you can make sure that all of the team can meet that strict timeline, that strict standard you have for the delivery of the software itself. Yeah. So that will actually bring into that disadvantage itself. Right. So that is actually the whole difference of DevOps and also Agile itself. So when it comes to DevOps, it doesn't mean that we can slack our time, we can just drink coffee and we don't do anything. But DevOps is another way of managing your team to actually categorize the whole team itself into development and operation itself, so that you can manage the software delivery itself to not end by some time. Because agile development itself is the total aim at the end is that you can quickly deliver that software. And after that, you will just give some support, like, oh, there are customer feedback or client feedback telling you that, oh, there are actually some errors or some bugs. So can you actually provide some support for this? So at the end of the day, you would just give or assign anyone or allocate anyone in the team to be the back-end supporter, so that this person would actually look after the giving the patches, or look after the 24/7 support itself based on your legacy or your legal document that you have signed over the contract itself. So this is for agile methodology. But when we look into DevOps itself, you have a clearer picture of, okay, so now you are in an operation team, and this operation team itself, you are assigned with different tasks. One is for release, another one is for deployment, another one is for monitoring, another one is in operation. So when the feedback actually comes, it doesn't fall on an operation team, but it falls on the development team itself. So development team itself. Then the development team will look into planning again, because some of the recommendations from clients might not just the bugs that is inside the software. They might actually suggest a whole new feature to be added into that software itself. So if we are looking into software development for a software that is sustainable, let's say, then we would expect to have large changes in times to come. So if we are to look into that, then agile methodology might not seem to actually fit into this picture itself, because in this manner, in this aspect of adding large features or large changes for the software development itself, it might the agile methodology might not have that vision of this output, but DevOps certainly does. So that is why we have DevOps as well. Okay, it is not just to readjust the disadvantage of agile methodology itself, but more so it is to aim for the software nature of software development nature of that software itself. If we are looking into sustainability, then yes, we might be looking into DevOps. That would be a better way.
Okay, all right. So I think we have about 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, so we get a lot of information given by Miss Yim Ling today. All right, so if you have any question, you can ask us in Facebook comment, and we'll try to go through it one by one. But so far, there's no question over here. Let me see. Okay, there's no question.
So far, we have just greetings.
Yes.
Good morning,
No
all.
question.
Thank you very much. Good morning, all.
All right. So to conclude what has been shared with Miss Yim Ling just now. Okay, so we know that DevOps is unique. Okay, DevOps is unique in terms of to make sure that the software is sustainable. All right, that is number one, and then it is also unique because um, we can see the win-win situation over here. All right, okay, where the operation sides and the development sides, they work together, and we can see the infinity symbol is what Miss Yim Ling said just now, Miss Yim Ling mentioned just now. Okay, and also it could also bring joy to all of the not participants, we call it as stakeholders. All right, the team members and also the end user, where the end user can straight away give feedback, and then they will work together which team to refer to when we get the feedback from the end user. Okay, and then what are the suitable tools that they can use to make sure that people from all around the world can work together. All right, not only to work in not only put people in Malaysia to work in that team, but maybe we can have team from different country which working in different zone. So DevOps is unique in its way lah. All right, so thank you to Miss Loo Yim Ling, okay, for sharing session today. We are so glad to see you here. I am so glad to see my friends here, Miss Loo Yim Ling, and I can see my friends also over here.
Yes.
Okay, the audience, I can see my students. All right, so hope to see you again in future with another sharing session. Okay, or maybe we can have a little discussion with our IT students, our engineering students, to get more knowledge about software engineering and IT with Miss Loo Yim Ling. Okay,
Sure.
thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Till we meet again, Miss
Thank you
Loo
very
Yim
much for having me
Ling.
as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to audience. Till we meet again next month. Okay,
All
bye.
right.
Have a nice day and
Bye.
selamat Hari Merdeka ke-64. Okay, all right,
Yes.
bye.